I explore caves for a living. I think I found hell. I had heard the rumors. A cave deep in the mountains where people had died, and whispers about something unnatural. It was the kind of story you'd laugh off at a bar, but I wasn't laughing. I was in between jobs with plenty of time to kill, and these sorts of stories always drew me in like a moth to a flame. After a few drinks and persistent pestering, the drunk at the bar gave me an approximate location. The next morning, armed with curiosity and an unhealthy dose of arrogance, I drove up to the remote spot he'd described. The closer I got, the more my confidence wavered. Abandoned cars lined the roadside, rusted, gutted skeletons of vehicles, left to rot. Their eerie stillness gnawed at me. Whose cars were these? Were they the victims? I should have turned back then. Eventually I found it. A jagged tear in the mountainside, a black maw that seemed to exhale cold dread. As if to confirm my fears, scrawled next to the entrance were the chilling words, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here." My stomach churned. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to leave, to get back in my car and drive as far away as possible. But something about the cave pulled at me, an unseen force that whispered promises of dark secrets. Against all sense, I entered. The entrance was tight enough that anyone without caving experience would have turned back immediately. But at 5'8" and 117 pounds, I'd always been well suited for this kind of thing. I squeezed and twisted through the narrow passageways for hours, my flashlight casting eerie shadows on the damp, jagged walls. 3 hours in, I found a small cavern just large enough to stretch and breathe. I took a break and inspected my surroundings. That's when I saw the etchings, names scratched into the walls, alongside crude, disturbing drawings. One drawing in particular froze me. A crude map of the cave system. It depicted a figure crawling through a tunnel. Behind him, emerging from flames, were other figures. They were twisted, monstrous. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. I should have turned back, but the same pull that lured me here kept me moving forward. Despite the sweat pooling at my temples and the dread clawing at my gut. The next tunnel was even tighter, barely larger than a sheet of paper. I wriggled through it inch by inch, the rough stone scraping against my arms and legs. About 45 minutes in, I froze. A pair of soles stared back at me, shoes attached to a long, dead body wedged in the narrow tunnel. Panic surged through me. I had to get out. Fast. I began to shimmy backward, but then I heard it. Something was crawling toward me. The sound was faint at first, the soft scrape of nails or claws against stone. My breath hitched. "Hey!" I called out, trying to steady my voice. "Stop! There's a body blocking the way. I can't get through." The scraping sound quickened, frantic, desperate. I had no choice. I pushed forward. The dead man's remains were brittle, his bones splintering as I clawed my way over him, the sharp edges cutting into my skin. Behind me, the crawling grew, louder, closer. Then came the sound of cracking bones. Whatever was following me was eating its way through the corpse. Adrenaline surged, and I scrambled forward, emerging into a massive cavern just as the tunnel behind me belched out a final drilling crunch. I wasted no time. I piled rocks, equipment, anything I could find against the crevice to block whatever was behind me. My heart was pounding, my chest heaving. But as I turned to inspect the cavern, a new horror awaited me. It was impossibly large, like the interior of a football stadium. The air was stiflingly hot, and the walls seemed to shimmer with heat. And then I heard them. Voices. Familiar voices. They whispered my name, taunting me, reminding me of things I'd buried long ago. My father's voice stood out among them, a cruel sneer echoing in my ears. The things he'd done, the way he'd broken me as a child. It all came rushing back, raw and fresh. I tried to block it out, but then I saw it. The source of the heat, of the whispers. A pit of fire burned in the center of the cavern, its flames licking at the darkness above. From its depths, figures crawled, clawing their way upward. Their faces were twisted in agony, but some were disturbingly familiar. People I'd known. People I'd wronged. And then I saw him. My father, his face warped with hatred and rage, clawing his way toward me. "Boy," he roared, "where are you going? You're mine now. You'll stay with me forever." I ran. I found another crevice smaller than the last and threw myself into it. The walls scraped my skin raw as I crawled, desperate to escape the screams, the heat, the thing that had once been my father. The tunnel began to shake violently, rocks splintering and falling as if the mountain itself wanted to trap me. Behind me, the voice grew louder, angrier. "You can't escape me, boy." I clawed my way forward, ignoring the searing pain in my arms and legs, until finally, I saw light. I pulled myself out of the tunnel, gasping, sobbing, and fell into the grass. My car was right there, parked 20 feet from the cave entrance. I didn't look back. I drove straight into town and never told anyone what I'd seen. I gave up caving. After that, whatever I found in that cave, it wasn't meant to be found. And I'll be damned if I ever go looking for something like it again.